Hello everybody, how you doing? This is Fadari and this video is about how to create the canvas in HTML and how to use the canvas to draw something within that canvas. In HTML, we have a canvas element to create a canvas in which we could draw the graphics on a web page. Alright? Canvas element is only in container for the graphics. You must use the JavaScript to actually draw any graphic within that container. So let's just go to the editor and see how the things work. I have already written the basic structure of the HTML5. Also have written the code to draw straight line and circular line and text, stroke test, linear gradient, and the circular gradient. Just to save the time, first of all we have to use the canvas element in which you must have to provide the ID for your canvas. Alright, so it would be my canvas. Alright, width is fine. I don't need to modify anything in the width and the height. Okay, let me just save this thing and run it again. Okay, and you won't see anything because we have to provide it a border. Alright, so how you gonna do this? I have to use the style, solid, and color would be black. Okay, so let me just save this thing again and run it again. Now you can see the canvas and its border. Alright, so this is how you create the canvas. To draw anything in the canvas, you have to use the JavaScript, and we know that we haven't reached the JavaScript, so I won't be explaining about the JavaScript. I will just show you a little code about the JavaScript and just to give you an idea that how can we draw within the canvas with the help of JavaScript. Alright, so to use the JavaScript within the HTML file, you have to use the script element, and within that script element you have to write your JavaScript. So first of all, I have to create the variable c, which is equal to. Alright, so now I have to provide the ID of my canvas. Alright, now I have to create one more variable, and in this variable I have to provide the context of my variable c. Okay, get context. Alright, okay, now I can use the method for 2D drawing by using the cx variable. Alright, so to create the straight line, I will just simply copy this code because we haven't read the JavaScript, so you wouldn't probably know how does it work. I'm just using the JavaScript code just to give you an idea how can we draw something within the canvas. Alright, so let me just copy this thing and apply it here, and it's a cx. Save it again and run it again. Alright, so this is how you can create a new line. If I just change the value here, okay, save it again and run it again, you can also see the changes into the canvas as well. Okay, so this is how you can play with the values and look how those values affect your drawing in the canvas. Now we will be creating a circular path or a circle within the canvas. So for that, let me just copy this code and paste it here. Okay, to create the circle, all you need to do is to use the begin path method, and in that begin path method you have to use the arc method. Alright, and you have to provide the values there. Alright, so let me just save this thing and run it again. Okay, there was a missing element to create the circle, which was stroke. Save it and run it again. Now you can see your circle within your canvas. You can change the values to see how does that affect your circle. Alright, so this is how you can use it if you want to. And if I just change the values here, alright, so this is for the radius. Alright, so this is how you can play with the values and see how does it affect your circle. Alright, now we have to draw the text on the canvas and copy the code to draw the text. Alright, then paste it here, save it here and run it again. Alright, so now you can see that this is how you can draw the text in the canvas. And to draw a stroke test within the canvas, just you need to give a change here from the fill text to the stroke test. Alright, so that's the difference. Save it again and run it again. So this is how you can give the stroke test as well. And now in last we have two remaining things, the linear gradient and the circular gradient. So let's just see how can we draw those gradients. Alright, let's just go there and okay, let me just save this and run it again. Now you can see that we have created a linear gradient, and to create the linear gradient you have to do it in the two steps. First you have to create the gradient, and for that you have to create the variable first, okay, and in that variable you have to use this cx variable, and you have to use the method create linear gradient method. You have to add the two stop points to your gradient, okay, in which you have to provide the color of that stops. I have provided the red color and the white color. You can give it the color on your desire, and after creating the gradient you have to fill with the gradient, okay, and for that you have to use the two different methods, the fill style method and the fill rectangular method. Alright, so this is how you can create a linear gradient, so you can play with the values and can possibly get the different linear gradient. Alright, so this is how you can create a linear gradient. And okay, so let me just delete this, and now in the last we have the radial gradient, and let's see, just copy the code of circular gradient, save it here. Alright, okay, process for creating the linear gradient and the radial gradient is kind of similar. Okay, the difference is that when you create the gradient, you have to use the create radial gradient method to create the radial gradient, but if you want to create the linear gradient then you have to use the create linear gradient method. Okay, that's the difference between the both gradients, the linear and the circular, in their creation, but in the fill with the gradient step it is kind of the same thing. Alright, so let's just save and run it again. Okay, now you can see that we have created a radial gradient, and if you really find this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe the channel, and bye bye.